On the Autocar show today, the Jaguar XF takes on the Volvo S90. Then the Mercedes-AMG C43. And we continue our Palace Drive.
Volvo and Jaguar are not new to the large luxury sedan segment. Volvo had the old S80 and Jaguar had the first generation XF. Now, the problem was both those cars always played second fiddle to the likes of the Audi A6, the BMW 5 Series and the Mercedes-Benz E-Class. But that was then. Volvo has a brand new S90 and Jaguar has the second generation XF. Both these cars have evolved to a point that they are proper mainstream rivals to the German trio. But which of these two cars is the better one? That's what we are going to find out today.
These cars are symbols of power and wealth, and both of them do look the part. But you'll probably agree it's the Volvo that sports the unique appearance. The upright front with the concave grille, the Thor's hammer LED daytime running lights in the headlamps, the long flat bonnet that looks like it's actually home to a V8, the cut of the rear quarter glass. It's all very distinctive. And while the large C-shaped taillights might divide opinion, they ensure you won't confuse an S90 for anything else. On the other hand, the new Jag XF isn't immediately identifiable as the new Jag XF. The design is an evolution of the first-gen cars, and the family look is also a bit too strong. Be in no doubt, this is an attractive car, and the low bonnet, high tail look works really well. Detailing is also nice, especially those F-type like LED highlights on the tail lamps. Shifting attention to the interiors. Both cabins have their high points, but it's the S90 that gives a greater feeling of luxury up front, while the XF has the better back seat.
Stepping inside the Volvo S90 is almost like stepping into a Swedish spa. It's all very soothing, it's all very relaxing, all very calming, and it's all thanks to the materials in use here. There's this nice slabs of unlacquered wood, there's nice use of gloss black plastics, rich Napa leather all over, and these nice metal highlights all over. Then there's the detailing. There's this crystal-like effect on the start button, the drive mode selector, and even the volume controls, and even the aircon vent controls. It's all very rich feeling, and it really distinguishes the S90. Another thing is the centerpiece, which is this 9-inch tablet-like display. It controls everything and is your go-to place for almost all the controls in the car.
That said, we feel Volvo has gone a bit too far in its quest for a minimalist look. A few more physical shortcut buttons for routine functions like the climate control adjust would have helped. No complaints for the beautifully sculpted front seats though. There's multi-way adjust and even ventilation and heating. The top-spec Jag XF portfolio's front seats are no less than thrones themselves. Other things to like include the top-spec XF's 10.2-inch smooth-functioning touchscreen, the comprehensive ambient lighting program, and of course, the welcoming Jaguar handshake. It's just that the rest of the XF's cabin doesn't have the same sense of occasion as the S90's cabin. The dash isn't radical in design, and material quality also hasn't taken as much of a leap for the better as we'd expected. It's well put together, but when you focus on smaller bits like the ordinary looking power window buttons, you know Jaguar hasn't been overtly lavish with the cabin. Switch attention to the rear portion of the cabin though, and you'll see the Jag in a far more positive light.
The Jaguar XF takes an early lead in this competition thanks to its rear seat. And that's more to do with the shape of the rear seat itself. It's really well sculpted, beautifully upholstered, and it's got this nice rising base which keeps your legs really well supported. Now, headroom is just about adequate, but there's lots of legroom and you can really enjoy yourself in the back here.
The S90's rear seat isn't as special. There's acres of legroom, but the seat is down on thigh support, headroom is limited, and there is a touch too much cushioning for the lower back region. It's a bit disappointing, especially since Volvo usually gets its seats spot on. For this comparison, we've taken the top-spec portfolio version of the Jaguar XF. The fact is, it's the only version of the Jag that can compete with the sole inscription trim S90 on features and equipment. Both these cars come with LED headlights, sunroofs, park assist systems, navigation and heads-up displays. Ventilated front seats, 4-zone climate control, a powered boot lid and Apple CarPlay compatibility are features only on the S90. The S90 also gets a rear view camera, but the XF goes one up with its surround camera system. High-end sound systems are the norm, but to our ears, Volvo's brilliant Bowers and Wilkins system manages to outdo the Jag's Meridian setup. Time to get moving. Now, the S90 is presently sold in India with a sole diesel engine option. The 2-litre engine makes 190 horsepower and 400 Newton meters with power sent to the front wheels via an 8-speed gearbox. The XF diesel uses Jaguar Land Rover's all-new Ingenium engine. Again, it's a 2-litre unit, but power is 10 horsepower down on the Volvo and torque is 30 Newton meters up. Also, power here is sent to the rear wheels via an 8-speed gearbox. So, what are they like to drive?
I'm behind the wheel of the Volvo S90 and I must tell you the first point is that this is a very easy big car to drive. The steering is nice and light, and what's also good is that it gets up to speed very effortlessly. It gets into its rhythm fast enough, and when you want more of it, it delivers.
The S90 is the faster car to 100 kph, though the Duo is near identical in kickdown acceleration. However, for the typical buyer, outright performance is perhaps secondary to refinement. Some extra points for the Volvo here.
One of the things that the S90 does stand out for has got to be refinement. Now, the engine on the outside sounds noisy and clattery, but on the inside, noise levels are a whole lot lower. In fact, noise insulation is really good. Road and wind noise are also really well contained. And in general, it's all in tune with the nice, relaxing character of the S90.
In comparison, the XF's engine comes across as rather loud for what is a modern unit. The engine booms when pushed, and there's also an audible clatter at idle. Also, the engine's not got the S90's immediate power delivery, but once it is in its flow, it does feel strong. But if you want to see the best of an XF, take it to your favorite driving road.
On curvy roads, twisty roads, roads with lots of corners, you'll pretty much forget a lot of the XF's weaknesses, because this is the environment this car actually comes alive in. All you need to do is set the electronics to dynamic, and it just changes character. The steering, it is one of the finest, if not the finest, in this class of car. It's light, it's precise, and gives you an immense feeling of control. Then there's the handling. This is a very large car, but still turn-in is very sharp, grip levels are good, and you can just exploit this rear-wheel drive sedan's handling potential.
The Volvo is easier to drive in town, and handling, though not as engaging as the XF, is safe. The one thing I missed though were paddle shifters, especially on this winding section of road. It's something we've come to expect on this level of car.
The XF does get paddle shifters, and they do work really well. The XF's gearbox also comes with an S mode, so when you couple it with manual gear shifts through the paddle shifters in dynamic, you can hold gear. Now, that may be a small thing, but it's a small thing that does a lot to involve the driver.
How these cars cope with our roads and how well they shield occupants from the happenings beneath is a key differentiator. The good news is you won't be uncomfortable in either of these cars, but differences do exist. The S90 that comes standard with the rear air suspension is nice and absorbent at low speeds. But up the pace and the Volvo tends to bob. You can trade some level of bump absorption for better body control by setting the suspension to the firmer dynamic mode. In fact, in dynamic, the S90 also makes for a very sure-footed high-speed cruiser. The Jaguar XF also feels nice and tight down at speed and is rather good at dealing with our average quality roads. The setup is clearly firmer than the S90's, so it picks up more of the surface's imperfections, and there's a bit more side-to-side movement too. There is more road noise than we'd have liked, but the suspension noise is well contained. Coming to the prices, Volvo sells the S90 only in fully loaded inscription form. Jaguar, on the other hand, sells the XF diesel in 3 trims. The thing is, the base and mid-spec variants feel decidedly pared down and aren't as desirable as the pricey top-spec portfolio featured here. So, how does it all pan out in the end?
So what's really clear is that these two cars have very distinct personalities. Where the XF is the clear driver's choice, the S90 is the car that delivers comfort and luxury in abundance. Now, if you look at what the typical luxury sedan buyer looks for in India, he'll get more of it in the S90. But that's not the only thing that's working in the S90's favor today. Volvo has absolutely nailed pricing, and when you compare it to what the top spec XF portfolio costs, that 8.5 lakh rupee gulf is hard to digest. So when you look at the big picture, it's the S90 that gets our vote.
Coming up ahead, the Mercedes-AMG C43.
Now when you hear the word AMG in a Mercedes car name, you just know this car means business. AMG represents the high-performance division of Mercedes-Benz, and these cars truly are special.
What we've got here is one of the smaller AMG models, the C43 AMG. Wait, smaller? Don't let that fool you. It's still part of the AMG lineup.
It will bridge the gap between the C300 and the beastly C63 AMG. And the good part about this test is we get to experience what this car is really capable of. In the perfect environment, of course. We're here at Buddh International Circuit.
Even though it keeps the slimmer body of the regular C-Class sedan, its diamond mesh grille, special cladding, larger wheels, flared wheel arches, and rear lip spoiler highlight the fact that this AMG means business. There are a few changes on the inside as well. There's red stitching on the matte black textile, and it gets microfiber sports seats. The seat belts are red, and the instrument cluster gets a checkered flag pattern. The 362 horsepower 3-litre twin-turbo V6 is the same engine found in the E400, but it is modified for performance duty with different turbochargers and AMG-specific tuning. Compared with the C300, it features a modified chassis setup with more negative wheel camber, a sport suspension setup with AMG ride control that allows for selectable 3-stage adaptive variable damping, a sports-tuned steering system, and larger brakes. Unlike the strictly rear-drive C63, the C43 is fitted with 4MATIC all-wheel drive. But its 69% rear torque bias means this car is still immensely fun to drive. And the 9-speed 9G-tronic transmission makes sure you're never searching for the right gear. There's always one at your disposal.
Even though it's slightly toned down from the bigger AMGs, it still has all the bubbles and the rumbles of the AMG engines. And it does sound good. Of course, since we are on the racetrack, everything's been kept on the sportiest mode possible, because anything lesser just wouldn't make any sense. And it's carving up the track just effortlessly.
Even though it may be less powerful than the C63 AMG, the power delivery is way more manageable, which consequently allows you to go faster around the corners.
And now the brakes feel just spectacular. There is an immense amount of bite and a lot of feel, which allows you to brake really late into the corners and still hold your lines perfectly, which gives you the confidence to push it harder than you normally would. The steering is really sharp and precise and really lets you hold your lines perfectly, and it does feel extremely planted around corners. So after a quick few laps around the circuit, the C43 AMG has really proven its mettle. This is a car that likes to be driven hard, and the experience is really rewarding. Of course, since it will come in as an export, it does tip the scales with its pricing. The C43 AMG costs ₹74,35,000 ex-showroom Delhi. But if you're looking for a gateway performance car before you get into the big leagues, this could be the car for you.
And after this break, the Palace Drive continues.
In this holiday season at Autocar, the topmost thing on our mind is a road trip that we've decided to do in style and luxury. Last week you saw the first part of our drive, and this week we continue on. We've left Jodhpur now, and with that, all the royal palaces of Rajasthan. Now we're making our way to Vadodara, and we've just crossed our first state border into Gujarat. A few hours of hard driving, we really couldn't help ourselves, depleted our fuel reserves, but the Elantra very kindly warned us and offered to take us to the nearest fuel pump. The only palace we've decided to stop at in Gujarat is the Laxmi Vilas Palace in Vadodara, home to the royal Jaguar family. The Laxmi Vilas Palace is one of the largest private residences in the world. We couldn't quite stay here since it still serves as the royal family's residence, but walking about the palace grounds gave us just a hint of how grandiose life within it must have been. The architecture is a mix and match of several styles, including Indian, Mughal and Christian, with every single square inch of the building covered in intricate ornamentation, decoration and relief.
Sometimes luxury is about having a really nice car. Sometimes it is about being able to afford a 5-star hotel every time you go on vacation. Sometimes it's about eating caviar for breakfast, and sometimes it's about drinking champagne instead of beer. But sometimes it's about having just a really large house, and in that sense, this here is a clear winner.
Leaving the grand Laxmi Vilas Palace behind, we moved on further south towards the heart of what was once the great Peshwa kingdom. It was time to leave the nice wide highway behind and head down a broken rural road until, rising out of a hillock in front of us, was Fort Jadhavgadh.
Up until now, we've been experiencing the lavishness and opulence of the Rajputs and Gaikwars. But now, we are in a different part of the country, and the royalty here held slightly different perceptions of luxury. The Maratha rulers of Maharashtra were not believers in ostentatious displays of wealth. For them, it was all about military victory, and their palaces kind of reflect that. Ornate structures, gold-gilded ceilings, rich tapestries have all been ditched in favor of rough-cut, impregnable stone. But don't get me wrong, they are no less impressive.
Even though Fort Jadhavgadh does not conform to the normally accepted definition of luxury, it is by no means uncomfortable. Now a luxury hotel, it is outfitted with a variety of creature comforts within the cold stone walls.
There is no doubt about the fact that these Maratha palaces are built more on the pragmatic side as opposed to the indulgent side, but they do serve to inspire respect for those military rulers who wanted to just expand and expand. In any case, indulgence or no indulgence, there's one thing you cannot argue with, and that is the great vistas afforded by these hilltop Maratha palaces.
Leaving Pune behind, we started for our last palace, all the way in Hyderabad.
A lot goes into the making of a luxurious back seat. The seat cushion itself needs to be comfortable and supportive, the legroom and headroom need to be adequate if not ample, but most important of all is what underpins it, literally the suspension. We are on our way to Hyderabad now to visit the last palace on this drive, and we've got some pretty terrible roads on this route, which is when the suspension of the Elantra really came into perspective. On the worst of roads, the car stayed composed, I wasn't being tossed around too much, the worst of the bumps were not coming in as jars. In fact, the car managed to iron out most of the potholes thrown its way, and I could actually catch up on all my reading in peace.
We snaked through the narrow streets of old Hyderabad, passing the iconic Charminar on the way. Before long, we were driving through the wrought iron gates of the Taj Falaknuma Palace.
We visited a lot of great luxurious palaces on this drive, but Falaknuma here kind of sets itself apart from the fray by way of its sheer lavishness. Everywhere you go in this palace, you're greeted by either gold gilding or expensive upholstery or wooden flooring or wooden paneling or furniture with the greatest attention to detail. I mean, it is all just so rich. If you were to picture a royal house of any variety, this setting is exactly what should be popping into your head.
Falaknuma in Urdu means mirror of the sky, thus equating the palace with heaven. Its diverse architectural influences reflect the wanderlust of the Nawab who commissioned it. It is made of Italian marble and features plush materials such as deep carpets, gold gilding, elegant tapestries, rare artwork and priceless artifacts. Throw in a garage of great cars and this could just be my heaven. Most striking of all though is the view from the palace. Situated on a hilltop, it overlooks all of Hyderabad city.
And this is it. My exploration of luxury has officially come to an end. And that makes me just a little bit sad. You see, 10 days of hopping from palace to palace has got me used to the good life. And going back to my humdrum life, well, it's gonna be a bit of an adjustment. Palaces will be replaced by my apartment in Bombay, brogues by sneakers and croquet by football. I don't know how I'm gonna do it. Someone once said that all good things must come to an end, and I suppose so must this.